Hello and welcome back to this channel and welcome back to the weekly roundup, which has been missing in action for a few weeks now, and I apologize for that. But then you see, with travels and all the time zone differences, it gets a bit it gets a bit hectic. It just doesn't add up in some cases. But now that you're back, we can talk a lot about what has been happening with Canadian immigration, what's going on, what's not happening. But just to start with an update for people who did not know, we are finally now in Dubai in terms of our office is set up, our operations is set up, and basically this whole trip had to do with setting up that whole office. Did you also know that this is the IRCC's fraud prevention month? Okay, so that is them creating awareness about the fraud practices and how you can save yourself from those fraud practices. And the reason why I'm talking about these two different things, as in Dubai and then straight away about fraud, is that when I was in Dubai, obviously we had to interview, right? And we had to interview people so that they could help us or join our team and then help us, provide the services that we are so proud of. And one of the biggest things that came up when you're interviewing is that almost everybody wanted to have a sales team. And in our company, we don't really have a sales team because thankfully, I myself am the only salesperson. So I talk to you, you guys believe in us, and then you come back for our services. So we don't really have a sales team, but everybody wanted a sales team. And I was like, so what does a sales team do? So sales team is supposed to sell the dream, the Canadian dream, the Australian dream, the New Zealand dream, the dream. It doesn't matter what dream. And they are willing to sell the dream at any cost. So you walk into their offices. I'm talking about the 800 to 1,000 plus agents, immigration agents that are now there in Dubai and across. So you walk into their offices, you tell them your profile, and they pretty much will sell you the dream. Whether it's the payment plan, whether it's which country, whether it is how you can make your life happen, whether it's offering you the job offer packages, whether it is helping you find a job, etc., whatever that might be. So they will sell you the dream. Once you have bought into the dream, once you have made the payment, then you basically can't get in touch with them. You can't, you don't hear back from them. You don't hear what's happening. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And when you do get in touch with them, they will tell you to retake your IELTS, improve your CRS score, etc. But I can tell you right now that if you're outside Canada, the CRS score, no matter what you get at this point of time, if you're looking at the all program draws, then in Express Entry, you probably might not have a chance at all. If you're looking at the regular draws, right? Express Entry draws. So why? Because the last draw was at 535, 536, 534 kind of a score, and it's ridiculously high. So when I speak to these people, and they are so sold themselves onto this particular dream, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these agencies who then again call themselves to be licensed. Of course, they are licensed in Dubai. Of course, you can't have a business there without having a license. But then they also call themselves to be licensed with, still most of them call it ICCRC or CICC now. And what they actually do is that they have an CICC licensed consultant who is the principal consultant, and they are just the marketing agent. But in most cases, what these guys do is that even if they have some tie-up with some consultant here in Canada, they don't really send your applications to that consultant. All they will do is create your GCK account, create a new email, submit the application themselves, process whatever, and give you guidance which is so tainted, which is so incorrect, which is so misleading that you might believe that you are being handled by a consultant, licensed practitioner, lawyer, whatever that might be. But actually, you're not. You're just being handled by one of the so-called operation agents from these companies. So whenever you go to these places and you ask them for their tie-ups, you will realize that they will give you a license number of some consultant who they will say is their licensed consultant, but you will never actually get in touch with them. You will never be able to talk to that consultant. You will never be able to see that this consultant is submitting your application. And the biggest giveaway is that your applications are never submitted through the authorized representative portal, but through some random GCK account. So if you are anywhere outside Canada, then please be very careful when you do deal with such kind of agents, such kind of situations, because the biggest giveaway is you will not be signing any IMM 5476 forms. The second giveaway is that your application is not going to be submitted through the ARP authorized representative portal, whether it's lawyers or immigration consultants. You would not be. And yeah, you would be getting all kinds of vague responses. You will never be able to get in touch directly with the consultant who's handling your application, the licensed one, right? The real actual one. And obviously you will be in that rigmarole of making the payments but not actually getting through. Real story, real situation, bad one. But hey, thankfully, now that we are in Dubai, and you know that the real consultants are there, so please do hit us up whenever you wish to, if you're in Dubai, right, and or surrounding areas. But for today's episode, always, even if you're not in Dubai or elsewhere for that matter, even if you are in Canada, you can still be taken for a ride. Very recently, we saw that Quebec-based, there are some individuals who are posing as lawyers and taking on applications from refugee claimants in Quebec, right? And people were just shelling out thousands and thousands of dollars. Similarly, there are also other agents, so-called agents across Canada, who are also posing as consultants and lawyers and saying that they're licensed and doing all those kind of things. And yet you might get into that trap where you might see your money all flying away. You might be kissing your money goodbye. So please be very careful with these situations. This is IRCC's Fraud Prevention Month. And always follow the IRCC's website for any clear mandate, guidelines, updates, information, because that is the only place where you will get it. Other than that, you can always subscribe to this channel, visit our pages, and hopefully you should also find similarly credible information and update there. Now, to start with today's episode, there are plenty of things I want to talk to you about. First one is obviously what's happening with the express entry. Nothing good is happening with express entry at this point of time. Because the draws are just not happening the way they should be happening. So what I have for you today is a set of data points, the set of data points which will give you a bit of a glimpse, because what is happening is a lot of people, of course, on social media are talking so many different things in terms of what kind of draws are happening, how many invitations will be issued, will the scores go below 500 or not, or will it stay for the rest of the year at 520 or whatever that might be. So I will just talk to you about the data points, especially from 2023, because that's where the category-based draws have started, so that you have a glimpse of what's going on. But before I get on to that, let's get started with our weekly roundup. Okay, that's the quote of the week. I love my quote of the week. Sometimes you get what you want, right? And other times you get a valuable lesson in patience, in timing, in resilience, in purpose and clarity. Either way, you win. And this is also so true as far as Canadian immigration is concerned and what's happening at this point of time. A lot of people do get invited, and others who are waiting, they are so angry, so frustrated, so irritated, so upset. They feel cheated. They feel that they have been misled. They have been misguided. That they were led to believe that Canada was going to be an easy pathway by studying in Canada, etc. But it's not happening. They were led to believe that just by working in any job in 1 year in Canada, you should be able to secure your PR. Now they are realizing it's not so. But what you do, what you are learning is a very valuable lesson in patience, timing, what is that, whether the timing is right for you or not, resilience, purpose, and of course the clarity. Purpose, again, this is something which I've been emphasizing for a very long time. Why Canada? You really need to put that into perspective for yourself, more for yourself, and in some cases even for your family, as to why Canada, right? And again, this is another thing that I wanted to sort of say. So I've come from Abu Dhabi this time. I flew in from Abu Dhabi on Etihad Airways. Very nice airline, very nice airport, really nice and flashy. It's actually a new airport. And then I landed into Pearson Airport Terminal 3. And it sort of felt that you have been transported into some, actually, I wouldn't want to say third world country, but actually some country which cannot claim itself to be first world by any standards. I mean, the washrooms were not very clean. The queues were being rushed into. It's not the prettiest of airports in terms of Terminal 3, especially the Toronto Pearson Terminal 3. I'm sure you guys can all pitch in into the comments and let me know what you think, because I'm sure you will have had similar experiences as well. So when Canada is portraying itself to be all that, and for people to be buying into this dream, but your first introduction, the minute you land in Canada and you arrive in Canada and you see that this is what you are coming into, it can be a root shock. A lot of people from places like Dubai, the Middle East, actually want to come to Canada, get the passport, and then obviously go back, or probably find Canada as a springboard into going into the US. But other than that, when you land at the airports, especially the Pearson Terminal 3, it's not a good sight. And therefore, knowing your purpose, understanding why is it that Canada is all that for you? Why are you trying to pursue Canada? What is it that is making you or driving you towards Canada? That clarity is so much needed. Maybe you might change your mind. Maybe Canada is not for you. Maybe you'll want to look at other options, other places. Maybe you'll want to go back. Maybe you'll want to see that you can build a better life, achieve better goals, achieve better dreams once you go back, or go to a different country, or probably look for a different dream. Therefore, having that clarity of your purpose as to why Canada is so much more important. Okay, this is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Thank you for joining in today. Stay up to date on the trends and immigration news and trends on TikTok, for whatever the reason we are on TikTok, Instagram, of course, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and now on, what else is there? Twitter, of course, yeah, Twitter, that's it, yeah. Okay, so Ontario conduct has thankfully have stayed consistent, unlike Saskatchewan, unlike Alberta. Ontario has been consistent. On the 1st of March, they had issued notifications of interest to candidates who qualified for the skilled trade stream of the Ontario province. The requirement for this particular stream, for people who still do not know, is that, and if you are an international student in Canada and you're still trying to figure out what you need to be doing, then this is a good stream, especially if you're in Ontario. And a lot of consultations that I do, a lot of people are already wondering what should they be doing. So skilled trade stream still is a very, very good stream. The score range can be quite low. In this one, it was 350 to 424. 2,583 candidates were invited. As long as you have 1 year of work experience in a skilled trade, so I think there are about 48 NOC codes there. In Ontario, within the last 2 years, you need to have 1 year of work experience, then you will be eligible in this. You don't need to do anything. You just need to have your Express Entry profile, choose your primary NOC code as the skilled trade NOC code, and you could be in luck with this specific stream. It's really, really nice stream in that sense, because I've seen a lot of people taking advantage of it, getting qualified. And yes, this should ideally continue. On the 7th of March, Ontario also conducted another draw, and this was the Human Capital Priorities stream. This was the healthcare specific draws. 2,104 candidates were invited. Score has plummeted down to 352, and the higher range was 421. Even now, a lot of people are confused as to why is there a higher range, why is there an upper cutoff range, especially for the Human Capital Priorities draw, or even for the skilled trade stream draw. Well, just to remind you that Ontario, whenever it conducts the draws which are linked to Express Entry, they play it in tandem with Express Entry draws. So what they will do is they will take the last Express Entry draw in that specific category, and they will put their higher range as 1 point less, because in their opinion, in their view, anybody else would have already received their ITAs, or since Express Entry is conducting these draws, any other people who, even with that score higher, would receive their invitations, and hence they cut it off at that higher range of 1 point less than the last Express Entry draw for that category. So healthcare, last Express Entry draw for Express Entry was at 422. So this upper cutoff is at 421. But have you seen that lower cutoff, 352? Brilliant, right? Now, in this case, you just needed to have 1 year of work experience as your primary NOC code, and it should be on the list that Ontario has invited. So doctors, dentists, physiotherapists, I think there are some pharmacy technicians or pharmacy assistants. There are whole loads of NOC codes in healthcare who have been invited. And this is really, really incredible, because the score of 352. So all these people who are always upset with the Express Entry because they lose points for age, right? As you grow older, you lose points. In some cases, you were not able to crack that IELTS of CLB 9, 8777, the golden score as they call it. And yet you obviously wanted to get through with this one. And therefore, 352, great score. And therefore, I'm hoping 2,104 of you are really, really happy with this draw. Don't let this one go, right? It's just $1,500 for the application fee, and you should get nominated pretty quick. British Columbia on the 5th of March had held both targeted and general draws, and invited 156 ITA. Now, the good thing with British Columbia is that they have regular draws. So they are conducting these draws every week or 2 weeks. And skilled worker, Express Entry, skilled worker options, and then the international graduate and the international EEBC option. The minimum score cutoff was about 126, which honestly is very, very high. And the reason why it is high, of course, is the more people in the pool means the higher the scores would be. Under the entry level and the semi-skilled stream, the score was only 99. Even that, to be very honest, is very high. 80 to 85 is where a lot of people are stuck at. And because it's only 156 ITs, probably that is the reason why the score remained quite high. Now, when it came to the targeted draws, there was childcare, construction, healthcare, and this time even the veterinary care. The scores were in the range of 70 to 80, which is, I think, pretty much more achievable. This one actually has been quite disappointing as well. There are a lot of you out there who have pinned your hopes with Saskatchewan, because Saskatchewan's PNP programs are also pretty good. Everybody who cannot get through Express Entry, or even if you're not eligible in Express Entry, you cannot score the 67 points for the FSW skilled worker eligibility criteria. Saskatchewan offers two programs, OID, which is Occupation in Demand, and the PNP, which is linked to the Express, OID and Express Entry, which is linked to the Express Entry. And usually they do conduct decent draws, 400, 500, 600 kind of people, sometimes even 1,000 plus. And that allows the scores to be lower. But this case, actually, they've conducted this draw after a very long time. The last was somewhere end of December. This draw on the 7th of March, they invited under the OINP and the EE stream, really, really low. Number of invitations was only 14 in OID and 21 in Express Entry, score of 89. Now, obviously, they did invite a lot of NOC codes as well, but that is a very, very high score, 89. How can you score 89? So if a person age below 35 with a master's degree, IELTS, or when I'm saying IELTS, I mean language score of CLB 8 at least, spouse accompanying doesn't matter because that doesn't influence the scoring factor. But having 10 years of work experience, continuous work experience in the same NOC code, has to be the same NOC code because that is how Saskatchewan evaluates your profile. Now, this kind of a person would score maximum of 70 points on the Saskatchewan grid point. You can't score more than 70 because this is pretty much the ideal profile. Then you get extra points up to 10 for French language proficiency, up to 10. So depending on your French language proficiency, you can get up to 10 points. If you have a close family, you can get 20 points. And if you have a valid job letter, job approval letter, JAL as it has been referred to, you can get up to 30 extra points. Now, that's where the additional scores are coming from. So for example, if you were 69, if you had 69 points and you had a close relative in Saskatchewan, you would be at 89. If you were at 60, if you were at 60 points and you had a job approval letter, you would then be at 90 points. So you have to score 60 in order to be eligible. So that's Saskatchewan for you. Quite disappointing because they have only invited 35 candidates total, which is really, really low. Fingers crossed, hoping Saskatchewan will wake up and start inviting candidates the way they were used to. Other news. So what has happened is Mark Miller, our favorite immigration minister, has introduced two new immigration pilots. Now, when we say pilots, are referred to those immigration programs which are like an experiment, like they are like a temporary program. If they are successful, they will eventually be converted or made into permanent program. Case in the matter would be AIPP, Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program. Then it was confirmed and made an AIP, Atlantic Immigration Program. Same thing, RNIP, Rural Northern Immigration Pilot Program, which will now be made permanent. As of right now, they have announced that they will be making it permanent. It hasn't been made permanent. It is supposed to expire in July this year. It was supposed to expire now, but they've extended for a few months so that they can complete the applications that are already in process. So it will be expiring July this year. But Mark Miller has already come out and made the announcement that RNIP, Rural Northern Immigration Pilot, will now become RNIP, Rural Northern Immigration Program, which is the permanent program. Other than that, they have announced two new immigration pilots. First one is similar to the RNIP, and this is for the rural communities. And the other one is for the Francophone minority communities. In both the cases, what they have done is they have invited these communities, these municipalities to apply. So because, for example, in RNIP, you have 11 communities. It is also expected that RNIP will extend to 4 or 5 new communities. In this case also, they have identified, or rather they haven't, they just broadly announced the programs. Now, individual communities who want to participate in this program, they would want to apply. And those communities, those municipalities will have to undergo certain checks and would have to undergo certain criteria as to what kind of services they can provide to the newcomers, what is their population, etc. And based on that, they would then be approved. And then the process will be streamlined for each of those communities. So what will happen is, again, job offer would definitely be required, because all these programs, as we have realized, AIPP, RNIP, now these communities, and at some point of time, municipal nominee program, which is also supposed to be announced at some point of time, they all are job driven or employer driven. So if you will definitely need an employer who will be providing you with a job offer so that you can then become eligible in this program. In this one also it will happen. This will eventually be launched somewhere in fall of 2024. Stay tuned for more updates on that one. That's basically it. Connect with us on social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc., etc. Of course, you're here. Hit that like button so we can get this video out to more people. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now, most important, what I wanted to talk to you. Now, I don't have a slide for it. To be very honest, I actually started working on it only this morning. I flew in back to Toronto yesterday afternoon. I was jet lagged. I crashed at 7. I woke up pretty early in the morning and started my daily routine, as in what I want to do. And then obviously wanted to do my live stream because I hadn't done it in a long time. And I thought the most important subject that most of you would be interested in would be the express entry and how things are not going in anybody's favor at this point of time. In terms of course, if you're in a category draw, then of course you're happy. You're really, really laughing all the way. I wouldn't say to the bank, but probably to the bank to pay the fees. But other than that, if you are in a general categories, right, you guys are really, really upset. And there are so many things that are happening on social media. Of course, right, everybody has a right to say whatever they wish to. Most people are predicting doom and gloom that the scores will never come below 520. Everybody below 500 can pack your bags and go away. Those kind of things are being said. But I mean, I'm not going to say whether the scores will come down or not. You have seen my previous videos. I'm forever hopeful, and I personally believe, not hope, not pray, but believe that scores should definitely 500 should definitely clear out. That is my belief. And let me just open the pool breakdown for you so we have that handy as well, because it always helps. Let me just pick this up. Present my screen. Where did we go? Yeah. So I'm just gonna take this to the pool breakdown. So this was the last express entry draw, which has happened on the 29th of February. 2,500 invitations were issued. This was the French language proficiency category. So Francophone category, right? If you have CLB 7, NCLC 7, and then you would be eligible in this category. 336 was the draw, which is, to be very honest, pretty decently low. But look at the pool breakdown, right? And most people are worried about this number. There are 9,567 candidates above 501. Of course, these 601s get cleared out. These are 1,000 there at this point of time. Of course, the next express entry draw will clear these guys out. I'm not particularly worried about them. I expect a draw to happen on the 14th of March, probably. Sorry, no, not 14th, 12th or 13th of March. If it happens on 12th of March, then we probably will see more category draws. If it happens on 13th of March, it probably will be a general category draw. So 965 is not a concern. 501 to 600, you have 9,567 candidates who are sitting in the express entry pool. Now, this, in my opinion, I would say is going to get cleared. I absolutely believe. And a lot of people are saying that it is stuck. It is going to be remaining at above 500, more than 520. It will not come down, blah, 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 blah. With all due respects to everybody who has a different opinion and view, there has to be a basis, right? I understand that IRCC for the first 2 months of this year, that is Jan and Feb, they have only conducted draws. And let me just scroll down, scroll up. They have only conducted these draws, which are pretty much 1470, which brought a score to 534. Then there was 1490, which brought the score to 535. Then there was 730, 541, 1040, 543, and 1510. So they have pretty much conducted the draws in the 1500 and less range, which I would call as actually a PNP programs, PNP specific draws, because they're pretty much only clearing those people who have received a nomination. Doesn't really help us a lot in the regular express entry draws, because most people would want to see the draws, at least of 3,000, 4,000, hopefully even 5,000 kind of a number, which IRCC was pretty actively drawing until last year, 2023, not too far away. Now let's take some numbers into play. I don't have a slide. I apologize for that. I have, it took me some time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this here so you have it. Right. In 2023, the number of invitations, the total express entry invitations issued were, let me see, 110266. Okay. So that's the number of invitations issued. Total 2023 number of ITAs 110266. Now the quotas or the targets were about 465 to 485,000. I don't remember. I keep forgetting these numbers now. Age is catching up, but they finally achieved that target. So in spite of that target of 400 and less than 500,000, in number of invitations that were issued were 110,266. Now, mind you, this number 110,266 is the second highest in the history of express entry. Now, history of express entry dates back to 2015, January 1. That's when express entry was launched. Ever since that, this is the second highest number of ITAs issued. The first highest or the most number of ITAs that were issued was also not too long back. That was in the year 2021, right? Not too far back, right? Immediately after the COVID had already hit. The number of invitations issued then were 114,431. I hope you will not forget that in the month of February, I think 13th of February, or was it 16th? Okay, month of February, IRCC issued 27,332 invitations specifically to CEC candidates. And that draw basically, it broke express entry in some ways, because the CRS score for that particular draw, for people who don't remember, was only 75. Ridiculous draws. IRCC got a lot of flack for it. PNPs were not very happy. Provinces were not happy at all, because it completely, took away all their candidates and who they were aiming to get into, because 75 CRS, I mean, come on. But 27,332 people got in. Now, this was year 2021. Number of invitations, 114,431. Now, this, what is on your screen, 2023, the number of ITAs, 110,266. You also will obviously remember that the category-based draws have been announced only last year. So only 8 months back now. And they were launched. The first draw conducted was on the 28th of June, when they invited 500 candidates under the healthcare draw. That was the first draw that happened. Let me see if I can pull that scores as well, so we can have that on our screens. Add this. Where did we go? I think it's on page number 2. Yeah, 28th of June. This was the draw number. The draw number was 252. Okay, 500 invitations were issued. Score was 476. Now the draw before that, if you see, the draw number 251 was a all program draw, right? Number of invitations were issued 4,300. Score was 486. The draw before that, 4,800 invitations issued. Score was 486. Draw before that, 4,800 invitations issued. Score was 488. Now, even then, if you see these 3 draws just before the category-based draw started, scores were pretty much stuck at 488, 488, 486, 486. So that basically told you that even after IRCC was issuing so many invitations, right, 4,800, almost 5,000, the scores were not really dropping, right? The scores were staying same, even after 2 weeks, after gaps of 2 weeks that the draws were happening. Why? There was a big influx of people who were coming into the pool with high express entry scores, in the sense like they were completing their masters, high IELTS, 1 year of work experience outside Canada, in Canada, 1 year of work experience. All these guys can very easily score 500 plus. And add to that if they have francophone scores, add to that if they have an LMIA, whether it's for 50 points, whether it's for 200 points. All of these factors in combination were seeing this number. Please also do not forget, March of last year, IRCC did invite, and I think we can find that here as well. There you go. Draw number 243, draw number 244, draw number 245, they issued 21,000 invitations in a span of just 2 weeks. In 14 days, 21,000 invitations were issued. The score dropped from the previous 791. No, it dropped down to 484 and then to 481. 490, 484, and then 481. And you can imagine the reason why IRCC chose to conduct these big number of draws, as in 21,000 invitations, was because there was this big chunk of people who had gathered. There were approximately 20 to 25, I think 24,000 people with a score of 481 plus, in the express entry pool, which was largely a worrying number. There was a lot of advocacy from the members of parliaments, from the political groups as well, who are supporting immigration, as to why these draws were, why the scores were so high. And the reason why the scores were so high is because the previous year, which is 2022, see, you have to understand the history. You have to understand all these data points to get a good perspective. So that's the reason. Bear with me. Earlier in the year 2022, in the end of 2022, in November, they had changed the NOC system from the NOC 2016 to NOC 2021, right? Your NOC became from 4 digits, became 5 digits. And then obviously the way IRCC systems are, the systems crashed and the draws stopped. So there was no draw towards the end of November. There was no draw towards December. January, there were some draws. So they did 2 draws, big numbers, 5,500 each. About 11,000 invitations were issued. These ones. But obviously the scores were too high because the numbers were too high. And therefore they conducted these 3 draws of 7,000 each, which basically tells you that it is within the IRCC's scope, it is within their purview to increase the number of invitations whenever they are, whether it's the political agenda or whatever that might be, whenever they are asked to make those changes, then it is within their scope, it is within their purview to issue these large draws so that the scores can be brought into some sort of normalcy. So 481 was the lowest that saw last year, and therefore we had that draw. And this year, unfortunately, obviously it's not like that. Now further, what happened is, and also what you need to keep in mind is this particular date, June 28th, 2023, that's when the category-based draws started. Now, just to give you a bit of perspective about these factors and these numbers is, let me get rid of this one. As I told you, this is of course important. 110,266 invitations issued in 2023. Okay, you have that. Then total number of invitations that were issued to all program draws. So including PNPs, CECs, FSWs, FSTCs, Federal Skill Trade categories, all program draws. The total number of invitations that were issued were, hold your horses, 76,700. Okay, that was the number. All program draws, 76,700. Okay, so this was the number that was issued. That were the invitations issued. Now they were throughout the year. There were 5 PNP specific draws. 5 PNP specific draws invited 4,396 candidates. Okay. And then there was this one very odd, right? Which actually got everybody by surprise. Which draw was it? Yes, this one, this particular draw. On the 2nd of February, 2023, draw number 240, they chose to invite only federal skilled workers. They have never done that. I do not know why it happened. I do not know how that happened. Was it a technical glitch? Was it somebody who pressed the wrong button somewhere? They invited 3,300 people with a score of 489, only federal skilled worker. This was a FSW program specific draw, the only time that has happened. So now you have 76,700 invitations which were issued throughout the year for all program draws. You have 4,396 invitations that were issued to PNP specific draws. Then you had 3,300 which was issued to the federal skilled worker program only. Do you know how many were actually issued to the categories throughout the year last year? Only 25,870. These numbers are so important so that you have a real perspective of what really happened or is happening. So The total number of category-based draws, ITAs, issued last year, 2023, because that's when it started, was 25,870. That's it. That was the total number of invitations issued. Now, you will say, but of course, category-based draws only started in June, which is true. June 28, where is this? Of course, June 28 is when the category-based draws started. Do you know, from January to June, when the category-based draws had not started, the number of all program PNPs, federal skilled worker draws, the total number of invitations issued were 59,048. So that basically meant from June to December. And when I'm saying June, it was already, if you can see, 252 was already end of June. All right. So from June to December, the total number of invitations that IRCC issued were 51,218. Okay. And out of this 51,218, the number of invitations that were issued to the category-based draws, again, as I'm saying, is 25,870, which then tells you that the number of invitations issued to all program draws after the category-based draws had started was 25,348. Now, the reason why I'm stressing upon these numbers, 25,870 from June to December, 25,348 were the all program draws, and it started from June to December. And the reason why these numbers are so important is because it tells you that they shared almost 50-50 of the number of invitations after the category-based draws had started. And because we do not have any other data point, there is no historical data to take into consideration, there are no trends to take into consideration. So the only data you can refer to are the 6 months of 2023 when the actual category-based draws had happened. Now, obviously, you want to know how many draws were issued or how many ITAs were issued to different categories. So for French, 8,700. I know I've seen so many of those comments. People are getting so riled up that the French draws are happening or the Francophones are being invited. Why are you guys getting riled up? I mean, don't you realize that French is the second official language of Canada? And that in the supplementary information table that IRCC issued with announcing the immigration targets for the year 2024, 25, 26, they have already announced the number of people that they want to invite under the French category so that they can encourage people, Francophone immigration outside Quebec. For this year, it's about roughly 26,000 people. So you already know that. So why would you get upset when these draws happen? Because even when the French draws happen, the remaining are still Anglophone draws. Those are not French specific. So the proportion of French versus the Anglophones is still huge. It's like almost 10 to 90. So if 10% of draws are French draws, still 90% are Anglophone draws. I don't see any reason for anybody to get upset about it. I mean, I can understand that the scores are low with Francophone categories, but that is low because there aren't too many people there. And if you want to take advantage of it, then I've been almost screaming and shouting since the last a year and a half that French category draws are here to stay and they will always have advantage. If you want to take that advantage, nobody's stopping you from learning the language, right? And just score it. Instead of spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars buying an LMIA or trying to figure a different way out, which probably will land you into trouble, learn French. So going back to what we were talking about, 2023, French or Francophone category specific draws, the number of ITAs issued were the highest, which was 8,700. Healthcare got 5,600. STEM category, surprisingly, got only 6,400. One draw was in, I think, July. No, when was it? Yeah, first one was in July. Only 500 invitations were issued, which caught everybody by surprise. And then the next draw happened in December. 5,900 invitations were issued. Score was 481. Skilled trades, they invited only 2,500 people. Transport, 1,670. Agriculture, only 1,000 candidates. But again, agriculture and transport had a very small number of invitations because the number of NOC codes were also quite less. In agriculture, you only have 3. In transport, you had about 8 or 10. That basically meant less number of candidates, less number of invitations. But other than that, skilled trade also had only 2,500. STEM did have 6,400, Health had 5,600, French had 8,700. So if you take these numbers and just pretty much double these up, that is on an average what you can expect for this year. Again, I'm only saying it on the basis of the last 6 months of data for the category-based draws that is available to us now from 2023. Anything other than that, we do not have any data to base any kind of analysis on. So what this means for people who are wondering what the hell am I going on and on and on and about, that in my opinion, and only opinion, I expect that IRCC is going to split the number of category draws and the regular general express entry draws, which is all program, including the PNPs, almost 50-50, if not 50-50, then probably 55-45, 45% in the favor of all program draws, 55 in the favor of category-based draws. And that is pretty much how it goes. And if last year they chose to invite 110,266 invitations, then I'm hoping and expecting that they would pretty much stick to the similar number, if not more, this year as well. So if you expect, because this year also, the number of federal high-skilled categories target for the express entry for 2024 has also gone up. It's about 110,000 now. So keeping that in mind, the number of invitations I expect to be in the similar range of last year, about 110,000, which says that about 50,000 invitations will go to the all program draws, and about 55 to 60,000 will go to category-based draws, or they could even be split half and half. Now with that, with about 50,000 invitations being issued with the regular express entry draws, so far they haven't conducted much. So far they have only invited roughly 5,000, or was it 6? Sorry, I don't have that number with me. I didn't take that into consideration. So far only 5,000 to 6,000 people have been invited in the all program draws, and only 2 months have passed. So you still have 10 months to look at, and you have roughly 45,000 invitations to expect. With 10 months to go, 45,000 invitations. Even if they start conducting 3,000 to 4,000 invitations, or 3,000, 4,000 kind of, they can always vary. They can do a couple of 4,000 kind of draws or 5,000 kind of draws, then bring it back to 3,000, again increase it to 4,000, bring it back to 2,000. All those variations are possible because that's what they've been doing in the past. Whenever they choose to do that, and again, I've just shown you historical evidence. They have done that in the past. Last year, January, they conducted 2 draws, 5,500, 5,500. In March, they conducted 3 draws of 7,000, 7,000, 7,000. All of them were done deliberately to bring the scores down. It doesn't stop them from doing it again. Obviously, we now have a new immigration minister who is pretty much more under pressure for a lot of things right now. But if the right kind of advocacy is done, I have absolutely no doubt, at least I believe it, that the scores should clear. Definitely 500 should clear. And from there on, if you actually see that, how many are there here? 490s is only 7,574. If you calculate 7,574 and 9,567, this is roughly 17,000, 18,000 profiles. If IRCC could invite 21,000 people in 2 weeks, then this is just about clearing 16,000 candidates. 16,000 profiles, that's all it needs. Sorry, 17,000, my bad. And is it possible? Is it not possible? You make that call, you make that decision. As far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty hopeful that 500s definitely should clear out. Once the 500 clears out, and from there on, they keep conducting these kind of draws with the intention of issuing roughly 50,000 invitations only for all program draws in the year 2024. It's my belief that 500s definitely gets cleared out. We definitely can see 490s happening within this year itself. So this is for all that opinions that you've seen on Instagram, on Reels, on TikTok, where it has said that the scores will remain only at 500 plus. That is basically what I wanted to discuss with you and tell you that, I mean, while express entry is in slumber, right, they seem to be sleeping. I'm not sure who is making those calls or whatever the reason for these decisions are. Earlier, we saw that there was some French technical glitches, French language exam TEF technical glitches. Before that, we had the Canadian postal code glitches. Before that, we had the NOC glitches, and these just continue, right? So hopefully, I'm just hoping that they would have sorted out all these glitches and we can go back to having some normalcy in the draws. Thank you for joining, whoever did join. Whoever has joined, thank you for that. And of course, please do not forget to hit on the like and to subscribe to the channel. That is good sign of you following the right kind of information. Let's get some questions cracking. Okay, what are the requirements for 00 tier code LMIA? Well, okay, first of all, LMIAs are processed by the employers, not by the candidates. As far as employer is concerned, there was a Supreme Court case, federal court case a few months, I think a couple of years back actually, where there was an approval of 00 NOC code, which gave the candidate 200 points. It was IRCC who chose to refuse that application because that company did not have enough number of employees. And IRCC insisted that at least 50 people should have been reporting to this kind of a person so that this person would have been able to justify a position of 00 NOC code, such as a senior level position. As far as ESDC is concerned, Employment Social Development of Canada, who approves and processes LMIA application, as far as they are concerned, they are not particularly gung-ho or hung up on the 50 people kind of a requirement. As long as the job offer is genuine, you are able to explain why do you need this person in a senior position and have suitable financial viability of the company, where the company should be able to pay this kind of a salary, and the company has a genuine operation, genuine premises, genuine job, then you pretty much will get the approval for 00 LMIA NOC code. It is just that when you submit your application, you claim the points for 200, you claim the 200 points, and when you submit your PR application or your work permit application, then IRCC also needs to be convinced that this is a genuine job offer for a genuine position which deserves 00 NOC code. So two different aspects. So both of that you need to take into consideration. No question there. No question there. Kishore says, I have a Canadian citizen willing to adopt me. Is it possible? I'm 24 years old and I'm on 1-year work visa. Well, they can certainly adopt you. You will hopefully be able to get some, a part of their if they're willing to put some will, put you on their will, probably that would work for you. As far as the PR application is concerned, no, that doesn't really work. You are already 24 years old, which basically means you're not a dependent child. You're not that age which is considered as a dependent child. So they will not be able to sponsor you if that's what you were looking for. Can I apply Dubai PCC online from India? Yes, you can. You can go on to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs UAE website. They also have an app online on Android and Apple, or you can go onto the Dubai Police website. Fill up the form. It's pretty simple, straightforward, and the PCC comes pretty quickly. I think it comes within the day. EE with 511, if STEM is 483, can I add my spouse? I'm not sure what you're asking me. If STEM is 483, can I add my spouse? Well, you can add your spouse as long as the draw score is, your new score after adding your spouse remains above the drawn score. You can certainly add your spouse. There is not a problem. Waiting for work permit extension under PP23. Okay, that is the postgraduate work permit extension policy. Currently outside Canada due to family emergency. Is there any way to expedite or to return to Canada as soon as possible? Unfortunately not. There is no way to expedite the application processing. And unless you have a valid TRV, you will not be able to enter Canada. Forgive me, I'm sorry about that. OINP fees, international student stream, $1,500 is for couple or per person. Can we go outside Canada when OINP is in process? My vest is expired. Can we renew it or need to send copy to IRCC? Okay, lots of questions there. First of all, Ontario's application fees is for the application. It is not per person. So if you and your spouse are both added into the application, the fee remains the same, which is 1,500 Canadian dollars. If you wish to travel, yes, you can travel during the OINP process or even during the PR application process. If your VES is expired, you can order a duplicate copy on the VES account and that would renew it for you. No question there, Richard. Okay, Mahindra says, applied for spouse open work permit, already 4 months, still waiting on results. Any reason for late processing? Many of my friends have same issues. That is because the work permit processing times are varying anywhere between 3 to 5 months. And you can always check online as well as to what is the current processing times. But I think 4 months is pretty much within the processing times that we have been seeing lately. I have spouse open work permit valid till July 24. If I apply for study permit for September intake and receive study permit, does it void my current work permit or still work until my work permit expires? Good question. A lot of people do not know, but you can have more than one permit which is valid. So you can have a study permit and you can have a work permit. In your case, you already have a work permit which is valid till July 2024. If you apply for a study permit and that is approved, then you can have both the permits and you can continue working full time until the expiry of your work permit. And after that, you can continue working if you have already started studying, but you will then be able to work under the study permit conditions, which is 20 hours per week. Okay. Okay, no question there. Then we have my IEC International Experience Canada work permit expires at the end of this month. If change of status is rejected, must I leave Canada 90 days after my work permit expire, or is it immediate? Well, if your application for change of status or for extension of status is refused, you will then be sent a letter which will say that you are now out of status. You would be given 90 days to apply for restoration of application or restoration of status. Now, you can either choose to restore your status and change it to a visitor so that you can continue being in Canada, or you can leave Canada. Now, there is no specific date given as to when you must leave Canada. Because you have that 90 days period for you to apply for restoration, you can consider that as the period within which you should leave Canada. Or in most cases, you can also consider 30 days after your status has expired for you to leave Canada. In both the cases, you will please remember that you are out of status. If you come across an encounter with CBSA officials or RCMP officials, you would still be considered as a person who does not have status in Canada, and you may then become subject to a removal order. So please do keep those things in mind. PCC appointment after ITA expires, what should I do? Okay, so you basically mean to say that you do not have your police clearance, you're getting your appointment after your ITA is expiring. Well, then in that case, you should submit your PR application, add a detailed letter of explanation indicating the fact that your PCC application is getting delayed because you are unable to get an appointment. Add proof that you have applied for PCC or for your appointment, and proof that you have made the payment, and request for extension to be able to submit your PCC at a later date. It's not a problem. We have done it for so many clients. If I receive the ITA, how can I update IRCC for my new address? Well, after you have submitted your PR application, you can raise a web form and you can inform IRCC about the change of your address. You must do that. It is not optional. It is a mandatory requirement. It is indicated in your AOR, which says any changes to your family composition, any changes to your address must be notified to IRCC. Kushbu, there is no question there. Hitesh, if total number of ITAs does not pick up, including category general PNP draws, is it possible they are trying to offset excess refugee claims past excess PR grant? No, it is not. It doesn't work like that. So they have the annual immigration targets, right? And that targets are not a fixed number. It's a range. Let's see if I can pick that out. Hold on. So it's the numbers are always a range. Let's see if we can pick this up. Yes. Reduce this font size, please. And okay, here this is. For the year 2024, the target is 485,000. For year 2023, it was 465,000. And there is a range. The low range, 430, and the high range is 532,500. You see, it's not a fixed number. So even if they have taken excess applicants, if they've taken excess people, they would still be within that range. The variance in that range from 482 to 532 is 50,000 people. So please do not worry about that. Even if they have taken some additional people through some of the pathways, it still does not impact that. They don't have to reduce it elsewhere. That reduction will happen only in the next year's immigration targets if they have taken some real large numbers. But overall, these numbers are all in the range. For example, federal high skilled is 90,000 to 116. If you are more worried about the refugees, so refugees, that number is from 24,000 to 38,000. And if you see the total, the range is between 66,000 to 93,000. So that's roughly 30,000, 27,000, that range that exists. So yeah, don't be too stressed about it. I hope that clarifies, but it's a good question. Okay. Madhav says another international graduate stream general draw this year. Now you are referring to the Ontario's international student stream with a job offer. Is there a possibility for a general draw? I don't know. Last year they did conduct one general draw, and after that they started conducting category draws. They invited the tech categories, they invited the healthcare and the skill trade. Now for this year, I have absolutely no way of speculating whether they would be following the last year's process or would they be conducting another general draw. They did make the changes to their eligibility criteria from 2-year program to 1-year program this year. So maybe they might conduct some additional general draws as well, because I'm sure there are plenty of candidates who are waiting for that as well. Prabjot, there is no question. Sorry about that. Batman says, wife graduating in April 24 and plans to apply for postgraduate work permit from outside Canada as she holds H4 status in US. If she gets a job offer and application is in progress, can she go to the border and get her work permit issued? As long as she goes to the border from inside Canada, which basically means she flagpoles, then she can apply for her postgraduate work permit from, she can apply at the border. But if she's outside Canada, and depending on her citizenship, depending on her nationality, for example, if she's an Indian, then she cannot just enter Canada from the outside, from outside and arrive at the border and say, okay, I want a work permit. She would not be eligible. All right. So she has to be inside Canada, and then she has to flagpole, and then she would be eligible to apply for the work permit. I know a lot of people think that if you're applying at the border, why can't you come from outside? Well, the eligibility criteria doesn't allow for the person who's arriving from outside Canada, if they are not of certain nationalities, to be eligible to apply for a work permit at the border at the first entry. Spouse status changed from study permit to postgraduate work permit. My open work permit has remarks only valid while spouse is full-time student at DLI. Does my open work permit valid? Well, it has been, if that remark has been mentioned, that if it's only valid until your spouse is a full-time student, then this basically means that your work permit will no longer be eligible after your spouse stops studying. In that case, once she applies for postgraduate work permit, you can also apply for your work permit. And in order for you to apply your work permit extension, your spouse needs to be working, and she should have at least 3 pay stubs as well. That would be the criteria for you to be able to apply for your open work permit. Can I do 2 full-time jobs if I get LMIA until my open work permit expires? Will there be any issue in future for my PR process? Well, as long as you have a valid open work permit, even if you have an LMIA. Now, getting an LMIA doesn't mean anything. It doesn't impact your status. Having an LMIA means you are now eligible to apply for a closed work permit, or you can apply, or you can take those points for your PR application. That's all it means. It doesn't mean your current work permit, which is open, gets invalid. So yes, if you have an open work permit, and even if you have an LMIA, you can absolutely work full-time. You can do 2 jobs, you can do 3 jobs, you can work for different employers. It's not a problem. But if you have a closed work permit, then you cannot work for multiple employers. You can only work for the employer that has been indicated on your work permit. So please bear in mind, having an LMIA does not change your status. The fact that you have an open work permit, the fact it is valid, you can continue working for multiple employers. No question there. My work permit expires on the 26th of June. If I remove spouse, my score is 510. If I get invitation as non-accompanying, can I apply for spouse open work permit based on my invitation? The point is, you cannot apply for your spouse's work permit based on your invitation. You can apply for your spouse's open work permit based on your valid open work permit if you have one. So please, don't confuse the 2 things. First of all, if you get an invitation, you're not eligible for a work permit. You need to have applied for PR. If you have applied for PR, then you can apply for bridge open work permit. Once you apply for your bridge open work permit and get it, based on your work permit, you can always apply for your spouse's open work permit, because that is your work permit status, and then based on that, you can apply for your spouse's work permit. But just because you have an invitation, based on that, you cannot apply. I am at 487, applicable for STEM. My employer agreed to give documents for BCPNP after getting 600 points. Will I be under STEM or open category? I do not understand your question. So I do not understand what do you mean by open category. There is no such thing. And if your employer is giving you BCPNP documents, and if you're getting 600 points, then if you get the 600 points, means you've accepted the provincial nomination, then you will be a PNP candidate. You will no longer be a STEM or any other. So first you need to clarify these aspects. And if you want to continue to be eligible under the STEM category, then your work experience, your NOC code should be with STEM. And if you've accepted the nomination, means you've taken the 600 points, you are now a PNP candidate, which basically means you will get invited in the next draw whenever that happens. Should I submit my file near my ITA expiry date? Yes, you can submit your file nearer to the ITA expiry date. That's not a problem. But do provide the letter of explanation. In January 2024, submitted all documentation for PR application. Yesterday received request for PCC biometrics medicals. As per current stage, will IRCC request additional documents like work, reference letter, etc. for me? I don't know. I can't tell you. I have no idea about your application. What you have been requested for are quite common, normal, because you have to do your biometrics, you have to complete your medicals, and you probably did not provide them the police clearance, or they need a new police clearance. All of these are quite normal requests. Now, does that mean whether they will not request you for your work experience documents or not? I don't know. It all depends on what kind of documentation have you provided? Were they complete documentation, or does IRCC need anything additional to clarify your work experience? It all depends on that. Ontario draw NOC 22221 in January under tech draw, score range 471, 480. I have the same NOC, but my score was 485 in EE profile. Any idea when will be the next tech draw? No, I honestly have no idea at all. There is no way of speculating when Ontario's draws will be conducted because they keep it pretty close to themselves. My wife is on work permit. I'm in India. I got my open work permit and our PR invitation on the same day. If I get my PCC done in India and we complete our PR process, then if I travel to Canada on open work permit, do I need to get my PCC again and upload? No, you don't. Once you have submitted your PR application, you do not need to get another police clearance done if you have changed countries, if you have left your home country and come to Canada, until and unless IRCC specifically requests you for that. In most cases, they don't, so don't worry about it. Temporary foreign worker in Canada on closed work permit. Can GTS LMIA applied for temporary foreign worker for work permit extension or change of employer? Can GTS LMIA applied? Is it possible to replace temporary foreign on approved GTS LMIA? I don't understand your question, because a person who is TFW, which is temporary foreign worker, whether it's a regular LMIA, GTS LMIA, you're still a temporary foreign worker. That doesn't change. And if you wish to apply for an extension of your work permit, you need an LMIA. Whether GTS or regular, doesn't matter. PR support LMIA applied on November 29. No result. IRCC website says 74 days. Is there anything that my agent or employer can do? No, they cannot do anything. You will just have to wait. The processing times right now are quite long. So you will have to wait for the application to be processed and completed. NOC 5 years experience from India. If I try to gain 6 months experience as pharma assistant, will it be considered as my primary NOC to come under health draws? Well, the first thing you need to understand is that you don't need to choose your primary NOC code in order to be considered under the category-based draws. You don't need to do that. And in your case, if you have only 6 months of work experience as a pharmacy assistant and you're outside Canada and you don't have any Canadian work experience, then you cannot choose that as your primary occupation, because express entry will find you, or rather render you ineligible, because you need to have at least 1 year of experience. So if you have gained 6 months of work experience in a NOC code, which is in a category, then simply add that as part of your work experience and the system will still invite you. You don't need to have it as your primary NOC code. I hope that helps. I have done internship in dentistry. My Indian agent did not include it during study permit, and now if I use, my score increases. Any solution? No, I don't have any solution. If you chose not to show it, you cannot blame your agent for it, to be very honest. If you have chosen not to show some work experience, if you have chosen not to show some education in your study permit, you cannot blame it on your agent, because it is your application. The Federal Court of Canada also does not consider that to be your agent's fault, but yours. And therefore, if you now show that work experience, or any work experience for that matter, then IRCC can flag it. And this could create an issue where it could be termed as misrepresentation, because you did not, if you did not disclose it such kind of material information in the past. Now, in your case, it was an internship, which was part of your studies. In this case, it could mean that if IRCC asks you as you why you did not disclose it, you may be able to explain that this was part of your studies and hence you did not show it as a separate work experience. But it's a may, it's a chance. Decision is all yours. I have NOC B job currently. My employer is willing to do LMIA for NOC C. Can we do that? Will there be any issues for position getting degraded? Yes, your employer can do a NOC C LMIA and you can absolutely take it. But please bear in mind, NOC C does not give you any advantage in PR application. You will be able to apply for a work permit, but that work experience under NOC C or now Tier 4 will not give you any Canadian experience points, and neither will it give you any points for in-express entry. On study visa, I showed 9 months experience, but can I show it as 1 year now by attaching letter that the employer which states I was on probation for 2 months and salary was on cash? Well, this, to be very honest, sounds like a situation where you're trying to, those kind of things. I honestly cannot answer this question for you. The idea is, if it is genuine work experience, your employer will be able to say that and you will be able to prove it. If you're trying to stretch it just because you want to meet certain criteria, then it can always be a problem because IRCC can flag it. The decision to do something like this is entirely yours. I possibly cannot give you that answer here and tell you that, for you to do it or not to do it, and whether it's going to be fine or not. At the end of the day, as I said, if it is genuine work experience, then you don't even have to ask this question. It's not a problem. You can absolutely get the letter from your employer. You can prove that period of work. If you can prove that period of work, it's not a problem. No question there, sorry. I have a primary NOC code as civil engineer, and I have experience in this field from 2015 till December 21, September in my home country. Will I come under STEM category? In order to come under STEM category, you should have at least 6 months of work experience, which fits within the last 3 years. Okay. If that 6 months work experience fits within the last 3 years, then you will be able to claim yourself under that category-based draws. Where were we? Sorry, nothing there. Our postgraduate work permit is expiring 14th of March. We have applied for extension. Can we work until they make a decision on our application? Can we also apply for a visitor? Well, you can do both if you wish to. However, if your visitor record is approved before your postgraduate work permit extension gets approved, then you would have lost your status. Now you are now a visitor, means you can no longer work. And the whole purpose of doing this, I guess, is to gain implied status. But to answer your first question, if you've applied for extension, can you keep working? Yes, you can keep working because you would be on something we refer to as implied status or maintained status, which by law allows you to continue working as per the conditions of your earlier or your old status in Canada. Spouse not in the file. Spouse needs to go back to India for some time. If I receive invite letter or before her trip, then when spouse can apply for PCC? Well, anytime before the submission of your PR application, your spouse will need to complete the police clearance and submit. Whether the spouse is accompanying, not accompanying, doesn't matter. The spouse is in Canada or outside Canada, it doesn't matter. You will need to complete the police clearance. What matters is where the spouse is at the time of the submission of the application. If the spouse's country of residence is outside Canada when you are submitting your application, then they can get it from that country. If the spouse's country of residence is outside Canada, outside that country, but in Canada, then you need to apply for police clearance from outside of that country. So that includes the entire duration of that stay in that country. When CEC PR in progress, can I travel to the US as visitor? If yes, should I inform IRCC about my travel? When your PR application is in progress, you are absolutely free to travel wherever you wish to travel. There is no problem. And no, you don't need to inform IRCC about it. You are absolutely free. You can go to US, you can go to India, you can go to any country for that matter. There is no problem whatsoever. It's just that in order to return back to Canada, you should have a valid TRV. What are the supporting documents for PR card renewal? For PR card renewal, it all depends. Are you in compliance with your residency obligation? Are you a person who has any other situation where basically if you lived outside Canada, what were the conditions? Are you complying with those conditions? So depending on what conditions do you comply with for the residency obligation, you will need to provide those documentation to support. Other than that, your forms, your passport copies, your old PR card, and all the information about where you have resided, try to provide your employment documents, your pay stubs, your utility bills, your lease agreements, whatever that might be, to establish that you are living in Canada, if that is the case. But yes, anything to prove that you are complied with the residency obligation. My MNC is going to apply for my LMIA, but my postgraduate work permit is expiring on 13th of March. I am going to apply for fake extension. But once I have the LMIA number, can I apply for another LMIA-based extension to maintain my work status? Well, yes, you can. However, so you can have two extensions, or you can apply for two applications, one your fake extension and then another one based on your LMIA. The situation here is that whenever the first decision is made, so whenever they make the decision on your fake extension, on that date, you would have lost status and you can no longer work. You have to stop working until your work permit application under the closed work permit is approved. So on that date, once your first fake extension application is refused, you need to stop working. Address on my passport is not valid anymore. Can I simply apply for PCC at a new address without changes on the passport? You would have to provide proof of address, and depending on where you are applying for, they may or may not accept your application. If you're in India, you will have to go to Passport Seva Kendra with the new proof of address. If you are outside India, you're in Canada, you're applying through BLS, you will still need to provide proof of new address in case of a PCC application. Because for PCC application, there will be police verification and they need to know your new address. So you will have to provide the copy or documentation for new address. Guys, please do not do any more super chats. I cannot do any more of the questions. So please do not sign up for any super chats. Does OINP Express Entry skilled trade worker draw NOC codes or they remove it? I don't remember the NOC codes on top of my head. You can go to the OINP website. You can look at their list of NOC codes. There is no way to say which NOC codes will be removed, which will be added. There is no data. There is nothing that I can sort of say that, yes, this is the basis. So you will have to refer to the Ontario's website for that information. Can you apply for international job offer stream while on maternity leave, an employer ready to support with the documentation? Also, if the wages vary from 18 to 21 and also earn commissions for sales. For the international job offer stream, you don't need to meet the wage requirement on the median level. You just need to meet the lower range of the wages. And as long as you have a valid status in Canada, yes, you can apply even being on maternity leave. That's not a problem. I have COQ for Red Seal and foreign work experience. I want to use COQ only as it gives 50 points. If I don't use work experience, is it misrepresentation? Used documents in study permit. Well, no, it is not misrepresentation. You can indicate your work experience in your personal history, and you can still claim points for COQ if you have it from the Red Seal. I worked part-time supervisor for 1.5 years when I was a student. Can I use that for my Express Entry profile? I completed 1 year full-time also supervisor. Yes. No. It depends. Where were you a student? If this work experience while you were a student was in Canada, then this work experience cannot be used for work experience in Express Entry or CEC. But if you are working as part-time supervisor outside Canada as a student, you can claim it. But any work experience gained while you were on a study permit, whether it is part of your education, part of your part-time work experience or co-op, then that cannot be counted for Express Entry or CEC for that matter. Sorry guys, last question. Sharad Malhotra says, I have applied for PR with PCC stating that this PCC is only valid for work permit and is not eligible for other purposes. Any issue in PR? No, there is no problem with that. As long as the police clearance is valid, it is for the country that you are applying for, in the sense like it is valid for that country, because different countries have different police clearances. So this police clearance has to be valid. Whether it was issued for PR or work permit, it doesn't matter. As long as the PCC was issued, that is what matters. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciated you having joined in today. Yeah, we will do this again, of course, next week. Until that time, please do share, like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care.